Hi, we're the Chris's, and welcome to our little presentation on SUDS and unsafe, describing trauma reactions by the Chris's. So, what is a trauma reaction? This is very important, so we will go through what this is. So, here I am in the here and now on the left, unhappy Chris's. For some reason, we want to go to Starbucks. Because, I don't know, they've heard they've had a great sandwich or we have a coupon or whatever. We don't want coffee because we have this horrible coffee reaction. We have a trauma reaction to the smell of coffee. So, obviously, we don't want to go to Starbucks because of the coffee smell. So, what happens when we try to go to Starbucks? So, we're like, I'm going to go to Starbucks, and we hit a brick wall. Here is... Heck no, Chris's, you are not going to Starbucks. So what is between us and Starbucks is a trauma reaction. Something is stopping us from going. And so if we personify this, because it's really a physiological reaction that we can't get from here to Starbucks. It's a physiological reaction, but let's personify it because physiology is our body, and our body is a member of our system too. And maybe there's a headmate in our system that personifies this reaction as well. So maybe Buck, let's say Buck, gets really mad because we want to go to Starbucks. Because they stole his name or something. No, because of the coffee reaction, right? So let's say Buck personifies or owns, I guess, part of this trauma reaction. Okay, so he's a person in our system. But this trauma reaction is really like physiologically tied to him and his brain imprint and when he fronts and things like that. So we will call the trauma reaction Buck. Buck says, heck no, we are not going there because that place reeks of coffee and it is not safe for us, right? So this wall, per what we're talking about here, this wall is kind of owned by Buck. Here's Buck. Heck no. We're not going. It's like, well, why, Buck? Why? What's the problem? What is so unsafe about Starbucks? So, in a lot of cases, we don't have, let's say, verbal knowledge of what's wrong. I mean, it's taken us long years to figure out why coffee is a problem, and to figure out exactly what the extent of the trauma is. But let us just say we're working on this and we don't know those things. So all we know is that when we think about going to Starbucks, we feel this resistance. We have this dropping in the pit of our stomach. We have muscle tension. We have, our legs may not even agree with us going. So we have all these different things that are happening in our body and our mind that are urges and feelings that stop us from going to Starbucks. So there's two different things going on here. There's what are the reactions, right? So what are the physiological reactions? The physiology, and then there's the intensity. So it's a little easier sometimes to just immediately be able to say how intense all this stuff is, right? So right now I'd say our resistance to going into Starbucks, sitting here on our couch on this day, is something like a 3. However, then there's also the physiology, like we said, the dropping in our pit of our stomach, a little muscle tension, the drop, tension, anxiety, and worry, let's say. And the heck no. So that would be about how we would sum those up. Now, what are we talking about here? Let's talk about SUDS and unsafe. SUDS are subjective units of distress. So we start out kind of like at a baseline. We'll call the baseline 0. And that 0 is like, I am yoga mat calm. I am peaceful day, sunny, beautiful butterflies, flowers, breezy, perfectly comfortable temperature. Nobody's around. Nothing's coming to get me. I am sated and I'm comfortable and I just feel good. I'm all right. So this is, I'm all right. Safe, comfy. And then there's the level of intensity from there. And it can go in two different directions. But the intensity is how far away from I'm all right am I? And we can go into what's called hypo activated. And we can go hyper activated. Hypoactivated, and the most we can think of is 10 in either direction. Hypoactivated is depression, flop reaction, like I can barely move, I'm unmotivated, I'm depressed, I don't think it's even worth moving, I'm not worth moving, I'm just going to lay here and let whatever happens happen. I have no motivation to do anything. Or some extremes of dissociation, like the whole world is very far away from me, or reality isn't real, or I have no idea who I am, and stuff. That ends up being hypoactivated. You lose motivation and energy. So this is a loss of motivation and energy and will and desire, etc. Okay, how down are you? Or low in terms of motivation and stuff. Hyperactivated is much more motivated than that. Oh my God, I'm frantic. How frantic are you? Panicked. Paranoid. Restless. Anxious. Okay. So this would be your anxiety is adrenalized. This is fight and flight, where this is flop and freeze. Okay, so SUDS gives us a quick number on a completely subjective scale of just how far from 0 are you, how frantic or how deflated are you, so that we can just get a quick reading of should we be concerned. Like under a 4, it's like, okay, you can probably manage that. I know, we figure, all right, we'll try and get it down from here, but given that we work with people with DID and CPTSD, it's like under a 4 is pretty good for most of us, right? We can handle under a 4. Under a 4 is like a normal day. What can I say? It's just true, right? Like we're almost always not a 0 and we're almost always under a 4, hopefully. But some of us live higher than 4. Maybe we're at a 6 or a 7 daily. and our really, really bad times are a 9 or a 10. And others, we live at under 4, and a really bad day is a 5 or 6, right? So it's just your subjective level so that whoever you're working with can kind of help you keep track of it. This is just another chart showing SUD scores, just in case you need another way of looking at it. And you can see hypoactive on the left and hyperactive on the right. Unsafe is an acronym to help us remember the different factors that we're paying attention to with that either person or part or our body, whatever it is that's got that resistance to us getting what we want. So we're going to listen to it and get in touch with why it feels unsafe or how it feels unsafe. And so, unsafe includes any unmet needs or trapped urges, repressed impulses, and so on. So what is it that it wants or feels compelled to do? So I want to scream, like I feel this like pressure to scream coming from my body, or like wanting to run away is a really good example. If you have a flight response, you're going to feel this urge to run and flee. So that would be an unmet need or an urge. I need a hug. I want to run, and so on. Noticed perceptions includes any intrusive thoughts, like somebody in my system is yelling, stop, don't do it, or whatever, telling me I'm a horrible person, and so on, like shame, intrusive thoughts, how dissociated I feel, like I feel soupy or blurry, I can't spell, any kinds of maybe flashes of imagery, sensory-ish stuff. What's the story going on? Is there something that, like, kind of sort of meaning-ish that we're making of how we feel? I feel trapped. I feel like I'm suffocating. I have to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. There's sometimes these kind of complex meanings that we make out of these sensations that we're having. So I feel trapped. I want out of here. I can't do this. That's the story. Age or ability, this is like our felt sense. Are we little? Are we small? So it could just be small. Or the I can't do this might not be I can't stand this or I can't tolerate it. But it might also be like, I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know how to unlock a lock. I don't know how to open a jar. I don't know how to shop for groceries. So lack of ability, that might imply age, or I can't reach that shelf, or things like that. So small, maybe you have a number, maybe you know it's preschool, maybe you can't do or don't have a skill. Then there's the feelings, which would be physical sensations. like my body feels tingly, tense, nervous. Like your nerves are on fire. I'm tense to run. I have a headache, like pain or sensations. And then there's the emotional feels. So then there's the, I am sad, I'm angry, I'm shamed, I'm upset. Or you can use bigger words like I'm furious. Can't even write. And so on. So this helps to give us information either to check how we're doing, to track our feelings. If we're going to actually work on these trauma reactions, then things like I feel trapped, I want out of here, I can't do this, become informative for how to undo these trauma pathways in our brain and body, these kind of stories and meanings and complicated things. The age may give us some clues as to what's going on, and our feelings, both our emotional and our body feelings and our perceptions, may give us things that we can use in imaginal work to create prediction errors or mismatches, or put things into the imagery that we're doing that help kind of unlock and relearn those reactions. So these are really good, but also to see whether or not you actually have resolved trauma, you would go back to the original situation and see if you have these same unsafe feelings or not, or if these unsafe feelings are gone. If the unsafe feelings are gone, you probably don't have that trauma reaction anymore. So in a quick summary of that, the SUD score would be a 0 to 10 intensity of how I feel right now. Or it could also be like I could remember how intense something was last week. So if something happened that brought up a trauma for me last week, I could say, oh, that was like a 7. That was an 8. So I could like rate how strong it was in the past just by remembering how intense it was. And so we can then rate that trauma reaction in terms of intensity, whether it's in the here or now, or whether it's something that I remember from the past. And then unsafe is what are the feels and impressions that we get. So this is kind of the impressions, the messages and meanings. Our autonomic reactions, headmate messages. This is the resistance. So this is how intense the resistance is, and this is the actual resistance itself. This is the physical and so on, the reason that we can't get what we want. And just to know, like, so say we were to rate our coffee trigger. Our coffee trigger is a 5 in general. So if we were to walk into Starbucks, it might even escalate to as much as a 7. And we have a strong flight response. So there's going to be an urge right? So that's the U, and that's the unmet need. So an urge or a need to run, run away, avoidance. I got to get out of here. But this isn't the why, right? This is the resistance. This is how the resistance is. And if we really want the true reason underlying that, we could dig into our past. But do we need to know? We don't really need to know why, but we do need to know what in order to resolve it. But I do know the reason, and that's because my body thinks that our egg donor is around. It's like, where is our egg donor? Where is our egg donor? So we might be hypervigilant too, right? Looking over our shoulder. And other kinds of hints that point to there's something or somebody about to come and give us pain. All right. So that's why we're resisting. But the reason we can't get into Starbucks is because our body is still having this reaction. It's not really because of our egg donor anymore. Our egg donor lives wherever the heck she lives. We don't even know. But she lives out there somewhere, and we haven't seen her in years. So it's not really because of our egg donor. That's just what happened that started this reaction. It is no longer why we're doing it. The why we're doing it is because our body has memorized coffee as a sign of emotional and mental pain. So it's holding on to coffee means danger. That's all our body cares about. It doesn't care if that danger is from egg donor or if it's from our godmother, who was another source, and also associated with coffee. So it reinforced the same issue, if that makes any sense. So we have this issue from more than one thing. And so our body and our brain and our neurology do not care if that emotional pain comes from them or comes from our new girlfriend or comes from somebody in Starbucks or comes from, I don't know, the waitress in the diner who's serving coffee. It's going to always say to us, I smell coffee, danger's incoming. So knowing where it came from, that it came from egg donor, is nice, but not necessary. What's necessary is knowing that to this day, my body still thinks coffee means danger. And so now we can work on coffee means safe rather than coffee means danger. So we thank you for coming to our mini little exercise in teaching folks how to use SUDS and unsafe to help them. And we have more articles on both of these and charts and definitions and questions to ask yourselves for these exercises on kinhost.org. And if you use the little search toolbar, you can put in unsafe and SUDS and get to those articles. The search bar is at the top of the page. And at the moment, it's also on the home page. If you scroll all the way down, there's the recent changes. They'll be in there because they're pretty new pages, and we keep touching them to modify them and touch them up. But if this is years and years from now, they might get buried in the site. So you use the search and you'll find, and they're linked to each other. So if you find one of these articles, you'll find the other one. And this is brought to you by Liberated Life Coaching. Which is a service of Eclectic Tech. .com. That's where you can find us if you ever want coaching. We never do this. We probably should. We should probably make these promotional, right? Da 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 da. Okay. And this has been a screen scribble by Alicia Chris's with some help from Frank, who likes to draw and help me out with these. So have a great day, and please feel safe, not unsafe, and have a low suds. Bye.